This is the hour, the Steven hour, and we are back with another James Bond movie review. And in today's movie review, we'll be reviewing the 1965 film Thunderball. Now, first off, let's get into the usual background. Now, by the time of 1964, after the release of Goldfinger, which is still considered by many to be the greatest Bond film ever made, and is yet, as it's always said, the gold standard for any Bond film. Now, because of that, the spy mania kicked into high gear, and the huge Bond craze as well. In many ways, Bond's biggest success was in the 60s, and with that, their next film, just as they promised at the end of Goldfinger, their next film would be, of course, Thunderball. And that was planned. They brought back Terence Young to direct after Guy Hamilton, who previously Goldfinger didn't want to return to direct, saying that his batteries or that his energy were fully drained and he would not bring any new and fresh ideas. They brought back Terence Young, who they know can direct a Bond film successfully, with his first two films that he directed in the Bond series being the series' first two installments. They brought back, but there was a snag. You see, by this point, Thunderball is one of the few films in the series that has one of the most complicated backstories in the history of the series. You see, way back in the late 50s, Ian Fleming already knew that James Bond could work as a movie series. So he, along with two other producers, particularly Kevin McClory being one of these producers, came together to try and create a screenplay to make a Bond film. The plans fell through and the film didn't happen. Now, Ian Fleming would then use the ideas from that script to write the novel Thunderball, which was released and became a big seller. Now, because of that, Thunderball in the novels introduces Spectre and Blofeld, along with many of the villains, at least the villains. Emilio Largo were introduced in the novel. Were introduced in that particular novel. And Kevin McClory sued after being mad that he wasn't credited. Now, he then got the rights to Thunderball, and along with all his characters, meaning Spectre and Blofeld. Now, producers, Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, made a deal with Kevin McClory to have his permission, to make the movie Thunderball. But there were some conditions. One, Kevin McClory was to take full credit as the sole producer of this film, while Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman take executive producers, not full producers. They also made a deal that they could use the characters, Blofeld and Spectre, for a span of 7 years. And after that, the rights have to return back to him. So with that out of the way, they rushed into production. And in 1965, the film was released. So the question is, how did the film do? And how do I personally feel about it? Do I find it to be just another great film in the series? Another great film in the series? Or do I find it just to be just a boring film overall? Well, before we answer that questions, we need to first, of course, get into the cast and then the plot. The cast for this film, of course, have Sean Connery return to the role of James Bond, and the leading lady this time is the character of Domino, portrayed by Domino was portrayed by Claudine Agger. Hopefully that name is pronounced right. The true main villain, of course, for the series is Blofeld. For this film is Blofeld, but just like in From Russia with Love, his face is forever hidden when we only see his hands. Pretty much the guys that did him in For Russia with Love returned for this one. And as a result, the person that really is doing the plot, making sure that everything goes according to plan, is Spectre. Number 2, Emilio Largo, portrayed by Adolfo Sila. Hopefully those names are pronounced correct. I'm sorry if I do not pronounce any names correct at all. We also have the first proper female femme fatale for the series, Fiona Volpe, portrayed by Lucia Polozzi. Again, sorry if these names are pronounced wrong. And it's basically the classic female Bond, female femme fatale. She's sexy, she is strong, fierce, and very violent. And yeah, and she is one of the main, and her character was never in the novels, as far as I know, and was made specifically for the film. She became the blueprint to these more feminine, these evil femme fatales in the Bond series. We also here have Pola, portrayed by Martina Beswick, who, believe it or not, had a minor appearance in from Russia with Love as one of those two girl gypsy fighters. So that's pretty interesting. If you are interested. Here, and we also have here have Angelo Sastino, playing the character of Domino's brother. Paul Sastino plays Angelo, Domino's brother. And then, of course, we have the character of Count Lippi, basically a Spectre assassin, portrayed by Guy Dolman. And here we also have just some of the regular MI6 staff. Bernard Lee returning as M, Q, portrayed by Desmond Llewellyn, and Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny. And of course we have, Felix Leiter returning back to the series. This time portrayed by a different actor. Again, the series also with Felix Leiter was almost like a game of musical chairs. Though the character would pop up rarely, what made it interesting is that the character was always portrayed by a different actor. This time portrayed by Rick Van Nutter. Though if I could be honest, when I first saw him, I thought it was just Jack Ruby, from Dr. No, but just surprisingly older. But of course, I find out that it was a different guy. Again, with Guy Hamilton and Terrence Young, they each had their different idea of what Felix Leiter should be. Felix Leiter in the Terrence Youngs is usually the guy that wears sunglasses and is portrayed as usually an American version of Bond. Guy Hamilton always portrayed his Felix as aristocrats, but at least with this one, I feel at least the casting is far more appropriate, and unlike the others. Also, I want to point out that one of the henchmen for this film is Vargas, portrayed by Philip Locke, who is basically he has this intimidating look. He's silent, rarely if ever speaks, and has blonde hair. Something that's become mainstay and has light blonde hair, and it's a mainstay. With the casting now out of the way, let's actually. Oh wait, sorry, hold. I think we almost missed a cast member that plays a vital importance to the role. We have Molly Peters portraying Patricia Fairing. Basically, she's at this health spa, which is in the first half of the movie, but we'll get to that more when we get into the plot. Now, our movie begins like every average Bond film does, the classic gun barrel. But though, surprisingly, this time, Sean Connery is in the gun barrel this time. Not the stunt double like it was in the first three, but Sean Connery himself. After that, we then zoom into a coffin with the names JB. Hint, a slight little thing what they do in these early films is to make it, pretend that Bond is dead. But it's not. Bond is actually alive. The guy in question that is supposed to be dead is Jacques Bouvard, a colonel, and as we find out later in the film, is a member of Spectre. He supposedly died, and Bond is angry that he didn't get a chance to kill him. There, of course, Bond is with a French contact. After leaving the funeral, he notices Jacques Bouvard's widow go to the car, opens the door, and drives off. Bond realizes something's up, and he and his contact quickly drive away. The car with Jacques Bouvard's widow arrives to his mansion, and she walks inside into a private room. When she gets there, Bond is already there. Bond offers his sincere condolences before, punching her. It's then revealed that the widow never existed, but it was Jacques Bouvard in disguise. Bond realized this because she opened the car door by herself, and a woman in high society would not do that. The butler, or at least a servant, would open the door. Weird, you can point to why that's stupid, but you gotta understand this was a certain time period, and this type of stuff was usually accepted, in a way. As a result, a fight breaks out, and interesting fact, Colonel Jacques Bouvard is portrayed by the stuntman who was usually in the gun barrels in the first 3 films. So there's a little trivia there. Bond, of course, wins the fight and kills him. He quickly makes his escape by a jetpack. As you can see, in here in the promos, he escaped. What the jetpack looks like. He then quickly lands, puts the jetpack in his Aston Martin, revealed to still be, well, not broken, and dispenses with the goons by firing water at them. Here we then launch into the title sequences with the song Thunderball, sung by Tom Jones. And I gotta be honest, this is one of my least favorite songs in the series. Now, I'm not sure. Well, as far as I know, the film, the song has a bit of fans. I'm personally just not a huge fan of it. Though I do appreciate the title sequence with all the water theme, as this is the main theme for the film, water. And you will find a critique in this film that there's a lot of underwater scenes. After that is done, we are then in Paris, where we meet Emilia Largo, who is off to a Spectre meeting. Here we get to see just how how huge Spectre is. All its all its top members. All the Spectre leaders are there. Blofeld, of course, there, and his face is hidden. And of course, there is the reports of how much money people brought into the organization, and one member gets killed for trying to embezzle money. Steal money from the organization. And like Blofeld said, we rely on the integrity of its members. Also, something I find really interesting, when Blofeld says that one of our members has died, Spectre number 6, Colonel Jacques Bouvard, was killed by an unknown assassin, he says his services will be gratefully missed. Here, I already can at least imagine that that's what Blofeld cares about, the services of the people around him. He doesn't care about if they're close friends or not, he just cares what kind of service they can provide to the organization. After that, we then get into Emilia Largo then explains to the group their latest project. And that is, and it's revealed that Emilia Largo is, of course, Spectre number 2, the number 2 man in the whole organization. It's revealed that what the plan to do is steal atomic bombs from a and then ransom for $100 million dollars, or they would fire it off. It's a honestly, when you think about it, the plot, it's more of a generic villain plot, stealing weapons and then threatening to use them unless you're paid off. But the way I see it, this was in the 60s, and I'm sure plots like that were more associated with the 80s, so I can think that these were one of the very few times that plot was used. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure this was the very first time it was ever done. We then understand that there is... he sent Spectre agent Count Lippy to a health clinic near the Able Air Base to proceed with the plot. We then find out Bond is there on a retreat, where, of course, he is with the, Peter Molly's character in the film. Is also at the retreat, and he notices something about Count Lippy that is off about him because he has this weird tattoo on his arm. He is then also suspicious how there's this man walking around the facility, the health spa, with his face bandaged up. But of course, because he's on Count Lippy's radar, Count Lippy tries to kill him and of course the plan fails. But I must admit, the way to kill him, it just doesn't work. Also, another thing, how Connery has a thing in just like in Goldfinger, how he kind of a little bit forces himself onto a woman, but does it with almost like with a little bit of charm, if you could say it. I'm not condoning it, but I just want to point it out. As she said, as she saves Bond from nearly getting killed, says that please don't tell my boss I lose my job, and he says, well, my silence could have a price, and of course we could guess what his price was. And of course he does get a little bit of payback with Count Lippy by trapping him in a device. Of course it doesn't kill him, but it does humiliate him quite a bit. Here we then find Volpe. We then cut to a scene where Fiona Volpe is having a, let's say, play date with Domino's brother Angelo, and of course Angelo gets called in to go to the Navy base immediately. He's on his way out, and as he opens the door, there is another person at the door with his exact same face, and sprays poison gas in his face, and sprays poisonous gas, which instantly kills Angelo. It is then revealed that he is an imposter who has plastic surgery and has been trained to look like him, but he demands more money, as in his mind $100,000 is not enough for this job. And I kind of agree with this being planned into action, but it also sets up his downfall as you realize he's too greedy to be left alive. He's then given the equipment, he goes to the Navy base, and the plan goes off without a hitch as he redirects the plane underwater to go underwater, which Minilago then steals the nuclear weapons and its device, but kills the imposter to silence him. Here we also back at the base, back at the health clinic. Bond gets into a bit of trouble with some Spectre guys trying to kill him, but also to dispose of Angelo's body. And Bond, of course, sees the bandaged guy's face as it was revealed to be Angelo, the dead one, which means that the guy that we saw bandaged for the first part of the film was, of course, the imposter. Well, was the imposter Angelo, which I kind of liked. And of course, like, Minilago then calls in saying that they've succeeded in stealing the missiles, but Count Lippy is now a liability as he's failed to kill Bond twice. Seeing that he's a loose end, they ordered his execution. And just as Bond's leaving the health spa, Count Lippy is also leaving to try and kill him for a third time. But Bond is saved by a mysterious person riding a motorbike that blows up Count Lippy's car. And of course, Bond has no idea what's happened. It's then revealed that the mysterious biker was Fiona Volpe in disguise, and has eliminated Count Lippy to no doubt for his failure. Just as Bond gets back to the office, instead of his traditional throwing the hat on the hat rack, he just places it and finds out that M's not in his office, but is in the conference room, and every 00 has been called in. Bond, of course, is the last one to arrive. It's then found out they then present a tape recorder with Spectre saying they've stolen the bombs and demand ransom, otherwise it will go off anywhere. Realizing unless the bombs are found, they have no choice but to pay the ransom. As a result, every 00 has been put onto an assignment to go to a nearby location to try and find the bombs and use their CIA contacts as possible. Bond was originally sent to go out to a naval airbase, but he says no because one of the pilots, Angelo, supposedly was on the airplane, was found dead at his health spa. But of course, as the Air Force says, but that's impossible. He was seen boarding the plane just as everyone else. And I like how M sticks up for Bond, saying if Bond says that Angelo was dead at the place, then that's good enough for him. He then sends Bond off to NASA to investigate Angelo's sister, Domino. Bond makes his way to NASA, where he and a fellow contact, Polar, end up running into Domino. Bond then, of course, charms away into, well, not really fully charms, but gets really acquainted with her, and his charms here doesn't really work on Domino that easily. And I kind of like how he's sort of trying to fight, not fight, but just like really try and get her attention. He then goes to the casino the following night, where he meets Emilio Largo, and instantly his radar is on its topper, saying that, that Emilio Largo must be one of the bad guys. Also, he wins the poker night, and of course spends some time with Domino, where Domino really starts to warm up to him. And he also finds out that Domino has no idea that her brother is dead. After that, Bond goes back to his hotel room, where he finds out that someone has broken in there. One of the two people that has been following him ever since he first met Domino. And of course, the other person that's been following him also turns up. One turns out just to be a thug working for Emilio Largo, while the other one is revealed to be this film's Felix. Now, I've already explained that the Felix is always constantly recasted, and that kind of annoys me, because I'm really sad that no person really, there's no one particular actor that constantly stays to play Felix. It kind of annoys me a little bit, but anyway, whatever happens. After that, he kicks the thug out of his hotel room, and he goes back to Emilio Largo, only to be thrown into a pool of sharks. After that, Bond then, of course, meets up with Paula, Felix, and, of course, Q, who is out in the field, where he is given his gadgets. A special breathing underwater device, a homing beacon pill that he swallows, a Geiger counter watch, and an underwater camera. Along with a special, underwater, I guess you could say jetpack. That's what I'm going to call it. Later, he then, of course, goes underwater to the Disco Volante, which is the boat Emilio had used to steal the bombs, but also just his overall boat. And as he's underwater, he finds that there's like a hatch underneath, possibly to store the bombs aboard. But before he could do anything, an underwater fight breaks out. Bond, of course, escapes and ends up going to shore, where he runs into Fiona Volpe, hops into her car. Now, this is a really great and interesting scene that plays just as she's driving Bond back to his hotel room. And there's the conversation they have. I really find it really interesting and fun. After that whole thing, Bond goes to Emilio's place, as during the night when he met Domino, he had been invited to go to his place to spend time. And this is a classic scene where Bond spends time with the villain, and it's also where Bond knows he's the villain knows about Bond, they both know about each other, and it's a little bit awkward, the conversations they have, and it's just overall great dialogue they share between the two. Here we also, Paula is kidnapped by Fiona Volpe. The contact is kidnapped along with the help of Vargas, Emilio Largo's henchman. That night, Bond is, of course, at this sort of Jahama, like some kind of festival on the island, where he's with Domino, where Felix runs into him and says that Paula is missing, and he then uses this opportunity to break in to Emilio Largo's home to hopefully find the bomb, find Paula, and just overall try to fix try to find the bombs mainly. He finds out sadly that Paula is dead and gets into a fight with one of Emilio Largo's goons, where he gets trapped underwater with sharks, and he narrowly gets out alive. I heard that Sean was very hesitant to do this scene because he hated being in contact with sharks. Then again, who wouldn't? After he quickly gets out of that jam, he goes back to Paula's hotel room, where he finds Fiona Volpe there. After a funny little scene with her, and of course Bond getting it on with her, he is then captured by, of course, the rest of Volpe's thugs, and takes him essentially to get killed. He then quickly escapes, but gets shot in the leg. Something I was surprised, the Bond to actually get shot. And I always thought that Skyfall was the first film to do that, but no, it actually happened first in Thunderball. He then, of course, runs to this dance club where he is essentially forced to dance with Volpe, as all the goons are blocking the entrances in and out of the dance club. Then comes this really tense scene And of course, Bond uses Volpe as a shield as when the goons try to fire a gun, thanks to the music covering the shot, ends up killing her. I find it to be a really absolutely enjoyable scene. But of course, she may be dead, but they still need to find the missiles. Bond then of course goes to a location where he finds the underwater crew that has been killed in the plane, along with the imposter. After taking the personal effects from the imposter, realizing that it's actually the brother's stuff but was just stolen off it when he got killed, he realized he has no choice but to come clean to Domino about everything. But not before they have a special moment together, underwater. I don't know how the hell that works, but it is a really cute scene, to say the least. And then what next comes up is Bond coming clean to Domino, revealing the death of her brother, and I really just like that moment where he shakes his hand as he's giving her her brother's effects and puts the glasses on to cover up his emotions. It's a really good, just nice little details from Sean Connery. Domino agrees to help to find, to get justice for her brother's death, and of course in this scene Vargas gets killed. As Domino is inspecting Largo's boat to find the missiles, Bond infiltrates Emil Largo's crew and disguises himself as one of the henchmen to find the bombs. The plan for both go terribly wrong, as Bond is caught, tries to and escapes, but fails to get the bombs. Domino ends up getting captured by Emil Largo and is essentially tortured a little bit. After that, we get this huge underwater fight scene with Emil Largo, all his crew taking the bombs, versus basically the good guys, Bond and all these, I guess in the army, I believe. And it's a really great and interesting fight that breaks out. It does drag in places, but I find it to be absolutely enjoyable, and I just loved how it's serious, it's funny, sharks get on it, blood is everywhere, people are getting killed left and right, knives get involved, and I like how Emilio Largo is not the type of villain that just, orders around. You really understand that he's an operative, and he really gets involved with the fight, something I really like about the villain. With realizing he's lost, he quickly retreats, but he manages to take one bomb with him and escapes on the Disco Volante, which transforms into this fast flying boat. By the way, Bond enters the whole fight scene wearing the underwater jetpack, like I said in the beginning of the video. But of course, Bond manages to get on the Disco Volante and a fight breaks. Bond gets on the Disco Volante and gets into a fight with Emilio Largo and what's left of his gang. Men. I like the fight, the choreography, but I admit I am taken out of the fight a little bit because of the rear projection. The fight ends with seemingly Emilio Largo victorious and is about to shoot Bond before at the last minute Emilio Largo is shot, but not by Bond, by Domino. Just like in From Russia with Love, a villain is killed by a supporting character rather than the main protagonist. It is then revealed Domino was saved by a thug working for Emilio Largo, who changes his allegiance at the last minute because Emilio Largo started to scare him. Just as the Disco Volante heads towards a rock, Bond, Domino, and the thug quickly jump off the Disco Volante just as it explodes when it hits the rocks. Bond and Domino then get into a lifeboat, which was dropped in the air by the military, and then they are taken away in a goofy, funny, yet surprisingly satisfying conclusion. The credits then roll. Thunderball is considered a classic in the Bond fandom, and literally is a favorite amongst hardcore Bond fans, though in recent years it has been questioned as whether to be a true classic. Another thing also is that people, just like Goldfinger, just like these films, there are flaws in this film, such as the very long runtime, the overall just underwater scenes say they go too long, and yeah, but But I personally find this film to be absolutely great. It is classic with Spectre, you know, holding the world ransom. It feels so Bond. The underwater scenes are great. This is one of the first times where Bond, you know, spies and sharks, you know, that whole thing blends very well together. It has a really great ensemble with hot girls, with Fiona Volpe being the first ever proper Bond femme fatale, like proper evil Bond girl. Domino's a really interesting Bond girl, and I absolutely love her. Amelia Largo is an okay villain and certainly entertainable. He's not up there as being some of the series' best villains, but he is certainly there as a good villain because in many ways he's designed to be an operative and to, you know, just do whatever he's been told to by the higher ups, and that is in many ways. Like I said, this film does have some flaws, a little bit. Especially the underwater scenes go too long. I do see that, but I still rather enjoy this movie, and it's definitely an enjoyable film. Like I said, it's been questioned whether to be a classic. Some people love it, some don't, but it's definitely a classic, and definitely it definitely proved to be a really great film. As at the time of the box office, up until Skyfall, it is the series' most successfully commercial Bond film. Of course, it didn't end up being a better film than Goldfinger, but then again, no Bond film is ever better than Goldfinger, at least to the main audience at large. Overall, this was another great entrance in the series and was another great film. After this, the Bond series would take 2 years before another film would get released. You see, when they first released the first film, the next film would come out the consecutive year. They took a break and as a result, a film wasn't released in '66, but was released in '67. That, of course, was You Only Live Twice, which will be released in 1967, meaning that no Bond film came out in '66. Very interesting. Overall, that is my review of Thunderball, an absolute series classic. It has its flaws, but it is certainly an entertainable Bond film, and I highly recommend that if you ever come across it, give it a watch. It's an absolutely great film in the franchise. And until next time, and join us next time as we review You Only Live Twice. And until then, this has been The Hour, or The Steven Hour. So long for now.